Have you ever imagined standing in a room filled with 92 people, celebrating what should be one of the happiest moments of your life, your engagement party? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The air is full of laughter, clinking glasses, and congratulations. And then it happens. Your future mother-in-law, the woman who is supposed to welcome you into her family, clinks her glass, commands attention, and points at your mom. She smiles, pauses for dramatic effect, and says, "This is her mother, the help." The room goes silent. All 92 guests are looking at my mom, Linda Brown, 52, holding her plate, frozen in shock but maintaining her dignity. You can feel the tension, thick as smoke, twisting in the air. People shift in their seats, whispering, unsure whether to intervene or just watch the spectacle. And there's Ryan, my fiancé, 29, sitting next to me, laughing nervously, pretending this is some kind of joke. But it isn't. I, Clarice Brown, 27, stand beside him, my heart pounding, my mind racing. How could someone say something so cruel in front of everyone? How could Ryan just laugh, not stop her, not protect his own family? I watch my mom, calm but quietly furious, trying to ignore the humiliation as she clutches her plate. My instinct tells me to shout, to confront, to stop this madness immediately, but something inside me tells me to pause, to think, to plan. Because in moments like these, you learn something important. Public humiliation is a test, not just of the person being humiliated, but of everyone watching. How will you respond? Will you stay quiet, allowing cruelty to go unchecked, or will you take an action that leaves everyone stunned? I slide my engagement ring across the table. Just like that, a small, deliberate gesture. I don't yell. I don't confront. I let the act speak for me. Everyone thinks the night is over, that the humiliation has been delivered and forgotten. But they couldn't be more wrong. That single, quiet gesture sets the stage for what's coming. What happened next would turn the night upside down. It would challenge my future in-law's authority, shake the social balance of the room, and teach a lesson no one saw coming. And it all began with a single, silent move. The moment my mom, Linda Brown, 52, stood frozen with her plate in hand, the room seemed to hold its breath. 92 pairs of eyes were on her, some wide with shock, others narrowing in judgment. The laughter that had filled the engagement party seconds before vanished, replaced by whispers and shifting chairs. I could feel every heartbeat, every movement in the room, like static electricity on my skin. My future mother-in-law, Cynthia Thompson, 55, basked in the attention, a smug smile on her face, clearly enjoying the power she thought she had over the moment. David Thompson, 57, her husband, remained silent, standing nearby, letting her orchestrate the scene without objection. And then there was Ryan, my fiancé, 29. He sat there, awkwardly laughing, unsure how to respond. I could see the discomfort in his eyes, but he did nothing. Nothing at all. My mind raced. How could someone laugh while their own mother-in-law humiliates your mom in front of everyone? Could he really be so blind or so paralyzed by fear that he would allow this to happen? I looked at my mom. Her shoulders were straight, her head held high, but I could see the flash of hurt in her eyes. Pride and pain collided in that moment, and my chest tightened. I wanted to step forward, to yell, to take control of the situation, but I knew I needed a plan. This wasn't just about reacting in anger. This was about sending a message that couldn't be ignored, that would be remembered by everyone in that room long after the laughter faded. The silence in the room was heavy. Guests were uncertain, some whispering, some pretending not to notice, but all watching. The weight of the moment pressed on me. Then, slowly, deliberately, I slid my engagement ring across the table. Just a quiet, subtle gesture, almost invisible, but enough to make the room notice. And in that instant, the balance of power shifted, without a single word. They thought the night was over, that the humiliation had been delivered. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. I stood up slowly, deliberately, letting the room take in every movement. The silence that followed my mother-in-law's cruel joke now felt electric, every guest's eyes fixed on me. 92 people, frozen mid-conversation, all waiting to see what I would do. My mom, Linda, 52, looked at me with a mixture of surprise and relief, understanding immediately that I was about to do something no one expected. Cynthia Thompson, 55, my future mother-in-law, suddenly realized her smug control had been interrupted. Her smile faltered, the self-assured tilt of her head shaken ever so slightly. David, 57, shifted his weight uncomfortably, aware that the dynamic he had relied on for years, his wife's dominance, my fiancé's silence, was slipping away in real time. Ryan, 29, finally seemed to wake from his stunned passivity, but it was too late. The moment had shifted, and it was mine. I walked slowly toward my mom, calm but radiating quiet authority. Every step was measured. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't create a scene. I simply positioned myself beside her, a subtle but undeniable display that she was not alone, that no one had the right to diminish her presence in that room. You could feel the tension radiate from the in-laws, the silent gasps of guests, the weight of their attention focused on the change in energy. Some guests whispered, others stared, but no one moved. The air was thick with anticipation. Could a small, deliberate act really undermine the authority of someone so controlling? I wanted the answer to be obvious, yes. And it was. Without a word, the power had shifted. Cynthia's control over the room had weakened. David's quiet enabler role was now exposed. Even Ryan, who had been passive, realized something crucial. My calm, strategic move had spoken louder than any outburst ever could. But even as the room adjusted to this new balance, a bigger storm was coming. The consequences of that night, the humiliation, the power shift, the subtle reversal, would ripple through the next day in ways Cynthia and David could never anticipate. The next morning, the fallout from the engagement party was already underway, though Cynthia and David didn't realize it yet. Their carefully maintained image of control, the one they had relied on to assert authority over family and guests, had begun to crumble quietly but irreversibly. Vendors who had once deferred to every whim now hesitated, questioning instructions politely but firmly. Family members who had stayed silent the night before now exchanged knowing glances, their expressions saying everything without a single word. I, Clarice Brown, 27, watched it all with quiet satisfaction. The previous night had been about more than standing up for my mom, Linda, 52. It had been a lesson in patience, strategy, and dignity. Public humiliation doesn't just affect the target, it affects everyone in the room, including those who allow it to happen. Cynthia had miscalculated. David had miscalculated. And Ryan, 29, finally understood that his mother's behavior had consequences that couldn't simply be laughed off. By mid-morning, subtle social shifts were already noticeable. Guests who had been uncomfortable at the party now spoke openly about the incident, questioning Cynthia's actions. Even the employees who had served the party seemed more respectful toward my mom, recognizing her dignity in the face of insult. The ripple effect was undeniable. Cynthia's smugness from the night before had vanished. David, silent as always, now seemed powerless to reassert authority. And my mom, standing or sitting with quiet pride, had regained her dignity without raising her voice, without drama, without yelling. The small, deliberate gesture of sliding my engagement ring across the table had become the catalyst for a change no one in that room expected. But the real consequences weren't just social. The shift in power, the humiliation of the previous night, had set off a chain reaction that would affect Cynthia and David in ways they hadn't even imagined. By the end of the day, they would realize that underestimating us had been a critical mistake. And the ripple effect of that engagement party was far from over. At the end of the day, the world that Cynthia and David had carefully constructed for themselves had shifted in ways they hadn't anticipated. The arrogance and control they displayed at the engagement party were no longer effective. Their social power had quietly eroded in front of 92 witnesses, and the ripple effect was undeniable. My mom, Linda Brown, 52, who had been treated with disrespect, now stood or sat. With her dignity intact, and with my unwavering support beside her. That night had been about humiliation, yes, but the next day proved that calm, deliberate action could reclaim respect far more effectively than anger or confrontation ever could. The small gesture of sliding my engagement ring across the table had been enough to tip the balance. It was subtle, unassuming, but undeniable. It said, "I am aware. I am deliberate. And I will not allow injustice to stand." Ryan, 29, finally saw the impact of inaction and the power of strategy. He understood that defending family doesn't always require shouting or dramatic confrontation. Sometimes, the quietest moves carry the most weight. The respect that rippled through our family, friends, and even vendors underscored a simple truth: dignity and courage can change the social balance instantly if wielded wisely. Cynthia and David, 55 and 57, were left to grapple with their mistake. They had underestimated us, underestimated my mom, and underestimated me. By the time the day ended, the lesson had been quietly but permanently delivered. The humiliation they thought they had inflicted had instead become a turning point. So I leave you with this: courage isn't always loud. Strength isn't always aggressive. And justice doesn't need an audience, it only needs the right timing and the right intention. If someone tried to humiliate your loved one in front of everyone, would you react rashly, or would you act deliberately, strategically, and leave a mark that can't be erased? Because sometimes, the smallest, quietest action is the one that changes everything. And for me, standing up that night wasn't just a choice, it was a declaration that no one could ever diminish my family again.